we have completed 37 legislative days. We have 23 days left, thank goodness. And that takes us through the calendar end of March. 31st day of March is our last legislative day. And then we push off 2 more days, the 14th and 15th of April, to allow for any veto overrides that the General Assembly might like to take up, that the governor would place on any of these later bills that we will run toward the end of March. The point of the matter is, as I can report to you, it appears to me that both the House and the Senate are working diligently on the single most important item that we deal with, and that is our state budget. The governor presented his proposal the last time we talked. He had things there for senior citizens, the Meals on Wheels. That was an increase in the number of meals, if you'll remember. And the House has not publicly come through with any of their recommendations yet, nor has the Senate. But that will be happening over the course of the next 15 days or so, and we'll see how that revelation comes. I think it's important to know that we will, from my vantage point, I think you'll find we will come with a budget. All the legislators that I've talked to agree that it is so important that we show the citizens of Kentucky that we can work together, and we have been working together. Now, do we always agree? No. But I think you'll find that we have good give and take, and I think that's what's so important, that both sides be heard, and that's what the legislative process is about.
Senator Ridley mentioned that we just completed our 37th day of the session, and I would like to remind you one of the challenges that we have over on the Senate side, and I mentioned this earlier, and that is the budget process, and the fact that the House got the budget from the governor on day 10 of the session. And we're going to get the budget on day 44 of the session. And then we're not going to have the rest of the calendar to deal with the budget, because we're going to have to leave days for conference, probably 6 or 7 days for conference committee. So at the end of the day, we're only going to have about 9 days to actually affect our general fund budget and our road plan. So that's a great challenge over on the Senate side. But we're preparing, we're kind of monitoring what the House is doing as best we can, any secrets we can get. Representative Thompson, if you want to fill me in on anything, I'll gladly take that information. But we're doing the best we can to kind of work through what limited information we have, and at the end of the day, we hope that we do craft, obviously, a very responsible budget, and one that meets the needs of the state and moves the state forward. And I would submit to you that probably over on our side, we'll take a little bit more fiscally conservative view of our general fund budget, would be my hunch. Not to say that important programs won't be funded at the end of the day, but it's a challenge. I mean, it's an austere budget to begin with, and quite frankly, all we have are the tax dollars that the community provides for us. So that's what we have to deal with. Real quickly, I want to mention just 4 bills that we have passed out of the Senate. We've passed 51 or 52 bills. Melody, do you happen to know something like? Okay, but it's 51, 52 bills that we've actually passed out of the Senate. These are 4 that I've identified that I think are would really resonate with you all. And I mentioned earlier today that we haven't passed a lot of real high-profile type of bills, a lot of real newsworthy bills, but they are bills of efficiency, they are bills of fiscal responsibility, they are bills that have cleaned up some legislation from past sessions, and they are things that help move our state forward and help our state operate more efficiently. But 4 bills that I will mention quickly this morning that we passed. One is the heroin legislation. We passed a bill to address this terrible scourge that our Commonwealth is faced with. And it's a 2-part bill. One, it's hard on the people that traffic in heroin, and then it's a little more compassionate for those that have been subjected to this terrible drug, and provides for some treatment for them. So it's certainly an issue that we needed to address. We did address it. Hopefully the House will embrace this and we'll move this bill along. And then we passed an adult abuse registry, and this is really important because as our population continues to age, there are opportunities, many opportunities for abuse in this demographic of our society. And this bill addresses some of the challenges that this demographic is faced with and how we might help in the abuse that they could be subjected to. We also passed, just this last week, came out of committee, was voted on the floor of the Senate, was cannabis oil. Now, cannabis oil is a derivative of hemp or marijuana. And as I understand it, and I know the sheriff back there is an absolute expert on all those issues, it doesn't contain those addictive ingredients that marijuana does. But it does provide relief for a lot of terrible medical conditions that people are faced with, not the least of which is seizures, and particularly in infants. So we have folks across the Commonwealth that have some really serious conditions, and they're having to go to the far reaches of the country to find relief. And we need to be able to provide that relief for them right here in our own state. And so with this cannabis oil legislation that we passed, we're going to be able to do that. Now this is in a clinical trial stage. It's not, totally wide open to the public, but it's going to be a trial run in a clinical setting. So hopefully there's going to be good results from that, and it will provide a lot of relief for some folks that have some really serious medical conditions that can't find relief in any other way. Then, lastly, a bill that I want to mention, and that is we passed out of the State and Local Government Committee for the first time ever, I think, and out off the floor of the State Senate, a bill that provided for the restoration of voting rights for felons. This bill came over from, there's actually two bills. Representative Crenshaw had a bill, and then over on our side, Senator Gerald Neal had a bill. In my committee, I heard this bill. I elected to go with Representative Crenshaw's bill for two reasons. One, he's retiring this year. It was a tribute to him. And two, it had already passed out of the House, so this would expedite the issue. But the only way I could get that bill heard was through a committee substitute. Now, the sponsor of the bill didn't like the committee substitute, I'll be quite honest with you. And a lot of people that support this bill, they didn't like the committee substitute either. But at the end of the day, the only way I could get that bill heard was with the committee substitute. So I did the best that I could do. The committee substitute is more restrictive, a lot more provisions on getting your rights restored. But I will say that there is a process now that a convicted felon can get his voting rights restored, and that's by a pardon from the governor. So that process has been in place, and it continues to be in place. But this is an ancillary way that a convicted felon can have his rights restored. Now, the way this process works, and you all are aware of this, that when one chamber passes a bill and it goes over to the other, that chamber has full authority to make any changes to that bill that they see fit. And that's what we did with this. So we're sending it back to the House. The House will not concur with the changes we made, I can assure you of that. So what's the next step? Then it will go to conference. And once it goes to conference, hopefully we can strike a compromise. And everybody can give and take, and we can get a bill that is satisfactory to all the principles. But again, while a lot of people didn't like the committee substitute, without it, it never would have been heard.
We've had probably about 511 bills have been introduced in the House. I think some 84 of those have been passed. And I might just mention some of the ones that we have passed that I thought were somewhat significant. We passed House Bill 1, which dealt with raising the minimum wage in Kentucky. That hasn't been done since 2007. I think we need to get people that get up and go to work every day and work for a living and are trying to improve themselves an opportunity to do that. So we passed that bill in the House. We passed House Bill 2, which I think is really important in our region here. It will allow coal scholarships, money from our coal severance account, to be given to Brescia, Wesleyan, WKUO in this region to help augment the cost of our young people going to get a higher education. So those coal scholarships will be available. They had just been available, Melody, as you know, in the 6 eastern Kentucky counties, and now it's going to be available in all 34 coal-producing counties. So that will be good. We passed House Bill 5, which is a cyber security bill. We all know what happened around Christmas time with identity theft and the breach at Target and some other places. And so we passed a bill, Adam Edlin led that, our auditor, to just make sure that if a breach occurs, people will be notified, which we think needs to happen. And I think that was a way to move toward hopefully having the state be proactive in protecting the identity of people, because they gather so much information from citizens across the Commonwealth, Social Security information, tax information, Bob, and that needs to be protected. And Senator Bowen mentioned a bill. We passed a felon restoration of rights bill in the House of Representatives for about the 4th time, House Bill 70. And we did it with strong bipartisan support. I think this has garnered anywhere between 78 and 83 votes every time that we voted on it. I think this past time, Jim, we got about 78, but there's only 54 Democrats in the House, so you can appreciate how bipartisan it was. And we just felt like that it was important after people serve their debt to society and they atone for their injustices, and they meet all their probation requirements, that at the end of that, they have the opportunity to be reintegrated into society, and they're no longer disenfranchised, and they get their voting rights back so that they can start their life again and not have that always be an albatross around their neck. We felt like it was there's about 180,000 people that could qualify for that today, and Kentucky's one of only 4 states that doesn't automatically restore those rights once you serve your debt to society. And the process that you have to go through to get those rights back is incredibly arduous. And we don't think those people that, again, that have paid that debt in full to society should have to wait. Now, the Senate put some additional burdens on there. They want you to have to wait an additional 5 years after you pay your debt. So, in essence, you're taking people that are disenfranchised and maintaining their disenfranchisement, and they can't integrate back into society for many more years. There won't be an agreement on that. I'm hoping that we can find some common ground for those people that would like to get back in and be normal citizens because of the fact that they've paid their debt to society. Some things that are percolating, if you will, on our side that we're getting a lot of debate about, a lot of good discussion on both sides that we may see some votes on in these final few days. A lot of discussion around smoke-free Kentucky, about passing a law that would prohibit smoking in public places in Kentucky, Karen. We've talked about it, a lot of support for that, but candidly some concerns on our side from some members about the one-size-fits-all approach. There are some communities that want to have some exclusions for issues that are peculiar to them, such as private clubs. Some people don't want to deny VFWs, for example, the right for them to be able to smoke in that facility. Some people have some cigar bars in their area. They don't want to exempt that. E-cigarettes plays a role. Do they get regulated or not? Can you have a non-smoking ban, no smoking ban, Judge, and you can't smoke a cigarette, but you can smoke an e-cigarette. So a lot of debate going on about that. Susan Westrom on our side has been very passionate about this, done a great job talking about the cost of lung cancer, the cost of smoking in our society, and secondhand smoke. So more discussion. I'm not sure whether we'll have a vote on it, but certainly a lot of discussion going on about that. Medical marijuana, the Senator talked about that. We had a committee hearing. I'm not on that committee, but the committee met earlier this week, voted it out. I think more than anything, to get some air underneath it, if you will, to get more discussion to be allowed to take place on that issue. There's still a lot to learn. There's some 20 states, I believe, that have passed medical marijuana, or marijuana at least for medicinal purposes. And I think, we need to probably see how their experience is going, what they're learning, what's working, what's not working. There's certainly some good benefits from it in terms of being able to address some maladies that might not be able to address other ways, particularly in the area of seizures and that type of thing that we've heard about. But there's huge concerns about potential abuse, about the recreational use of it. Keith is so knowledgeable on this, and I always look forward to listening to him. But we're just trying to learn more about this issue, but it's very emotional. I'm getting a lot of correspondence on both sides of the issue, so we'll continue to hopefully have some good information sharing about that bill. One thing that was on the sheet here that I think is a good piece of legislation, and that's the LIFT initiative, Local Investments for transformation, otherwise called the local option sales tax. I don't think there's anything more fundamental in our society. Bill, you talked about the right for us to be outspoken and have freedom, but nothing more fundamental than giving people the right to choose the destiny of their community. What direction do they want their community to go in? That's what this option would do. It's not a tax imposed from Frankfurt. It's not a tax imposed by local officials. It would just give people in a local community to determine if they want certain projects to move their community along, to improve the quality of place, which is so important today in attracting people to communities. So if we pass that and it prevails in both chambers, it would be a constitutional amendment, and then it would have to go to the communities. They may never impose it, may never use it as a vehicle to move their community forward, but I believe they need that tool to give them that option if they want to do that. And it doesn't have to be 1%, it could be a tenth of a penny. And then, but the community would have to sell the particular project to the citizens, and then the citizens would have the right to determine whether they wanted that or not. And if they did pass it, it would sunset upon the completion of that project. So again, I think it's fundamental about choice. It's gaining some momentum. It's interesting across the board. Of course, Louisville and Lexington are very much in favor of it, but one of my mayors in Ohio County in Beaver Dam, Paul Sandifer, about 2,300 people, he's in favor of it because he sees it as the ability to use something, because he realizes that fewer and fewer dollars are coming from the federal to the state and even less from the state to the local. So having to do more on their own, like we've done a lot in this community, invest in ourselves. So I hope that that can get some traction. I see some good folks from Tyson here. There's a bill over on the Senate side that I hope we'll get to vote on. I think it's Senate Bill 44 that would give a 10% weight exemption, which would really help our poultry industry, which is so important to GRADD in our area. What an employment engine our poultry industry is, not only in the GRADD region, but all across Kentucky. So I hope we can pass that bill. I think it's good legislation.
One of the things that we looked at a week before last, I don't know if you've heard this or not, but you know, we've had a very cold winter. Everybody knows that, and we had a propane shortage in this country for the first time in a long, long time, and that was really affecting some of our local industries here. Certainly the propane industry, they weren't able to get propane to their chicken houses, and it had a major disruption, and that sort of thing could have been really bad for a lot of folks. A lot of people heat their homes with propane. You know, if you can't grow chickens, then that could affect the food prices and that sort of thing out there for all of us. And so it was very important. And one of the things we looked at is I actually had a hearing to find out what really happened. And some of the things that we found out was that last year, and especially in October, I think they increased the exports of propane because the price overseas is a lot higher by about threefold. And so, you know, we know that companies have the right to sell their product at a place where they can make more money. At the same time, we had a very late corn crop. And as you know, that corn crop was wet because of all the moisture and all the rain. And so they had to use a lot more propane to dry that corn than they've used in the past. Then we had a pipeline that was coming from Canada to Minnesota that was kind of a major disruption. And then with the extreme cold weather, existing pipelines and structure may not be in place there. We actually had a shortage, and hopefully now that most of that's been mitigated. But the reason I bring that up is that it actually gives me major concern that we may not see that same type of problem play out with natural gas as we continue to shift from coal to natural gas in this country. And we have to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place as far as pipeline to get the gas to those power plants. Because if we don't, we could have some of the same type of shortages, blackouts, or whatever. And a lot of people aren't talking about that. Now, let me say that I'm definitely in favor of natural gas. It's a great fuel. We have lots of it in Kentucky. We have a lot of industries in Kentucky that transport it, and they're really very good citizens. And we want to do everything we can to help them. But I think that what we don't need to do in this country, I think, is to shift to one single source of baseload electricity generation. That's kind of where we're going. I know that and there's a big push because natural gas in Japan is about $18 an MCL. It's about 14 or 16 in Europe currently. Even though last week the price did get to about $6.50 It didn't range anywhere from $3 to a little over 4 or 4.5. So there has been about a threefold increase from where it was a couple of years ago, but that's coming back as the weather starts getting better. I think natural gas is something we can look to for more for transportation fuels. I'm very much in favor of that, where we're powering more of our vehicles on, because it doesn't emit the carbon that some of the other oil products do. So we need to do that, and I'm in favor of that. We run a lot of our businesses, fertilizer industry, chemical industries, use natural gas in that process. As I said, half of us heat our home with it. It's a great fuel, but I think for us to maybe shift the way we're going to for so much of for baseload generation to be really devastating. I had a bill, I think we talked about it the last time, that just said that for baseload generation, you had to have 30-day fuel supply on stock, on the fuel, on the site. I don't know that bill is going to move this time, because it'd probably be very, very hard to comply with that. But when the people come in and testify, some of the things they talked about were some of the points that I was actually making. As you know, for our coal facilities, you can always put another truck on the highway, you can put another barge on the river, and you can put another rail car on the train tracks. You can get that coal supply to the power plant. But if we go to strictly natural gas, then what we're going to have is we're going to have a lot of power plants that hook to a natural gas pipeline. And even though there is currently constant flow of gas through that pipeline, what happens if that flow is disrupted? What happens if at some point in time we don't have enough of that infrastructure in the ground to get the fuel where it needs to be? It could have major, even life-threatening consequences to our citizens in the extreme cold winter like we're having now, or really hot summer. People could die. So we're actually talking about some of those issues. In fact, they do matter to Kentucky. They matter to Kentucky because, as most of you know, we've been about the fourth lowest cost electricity rates in the nation. Recently, because of the cold snap and our ability to go back to and fire up some of the coal plants, we actually right now are number 2 lowest electricity state in the nation. And that's very important. That's important to our citizens who are heating their homes, but it's also important to the industries that provide electricity for the jobs out there. You may not know this, but Kentucky is the number 1 most energy-intensive state in the nation. That means that we are very energy-intensive because about 49% of our electricity goes to large industrial customers. And for the average state out there, I think like 20%, 20 to 27% of the average state in the United States sends that much electricity to large industrial. Where in Kentucky it's about 49. So it's very important to us. It's very important for jobs not only in the coal fields. It's important for jobs at GE Appliance Park in Louisville, Ford Motor, our aluminum smelters here, and all industry in Kentucky. So those are some things that we are doing. I did have a House Bill 388 passed out of committee they actually passed out of the House this last week with 99 to nothing, no dissenting votes. And what that bill just says is that it's just the president said that he was in directing EPA to work with the states to implement his climate action plan for emissions from existing coal-fired power plants. And so what we're going to say with this bill is that we're going to insist that Kentucky has primacy, and we're going to make sure that as we work to lower that carbon regulations, we're going to do it using available technologies. And right now I think what we're seeing is that people in Washington that are amending these regulations are saying that technology is available that truly is not available. It's never been regulated. It's never been done outside of demonstration projects. It would be very, very expensive. And they even had testimony this week from an administration official in Washington that when they asked him, how much these regulations will affect the electricity prices, he admitted that we could see electricity prices go up 70 to 80% in this country between now and 2020 because of what we're doing with some of these greenhouse gas regulations. So that's a big issue. We're working on it. 2 other bills that I passed out of committee this week. One relates to currently motor home dealers in Kentucky come under the same statute as auto dealers. And there's a lot of difference between motor home that has TVs and showers and all of that and an auto dealership. And so we're going to put them under our own section of regulation and law, and that'll help, I think, those folks. And the other bill just happened to do with less paperwork in workers' comp, that where the businesses had to have, they would have to send paperwork to the state that really wasn't necessary, really wasn't needed, really wasn't being used. And this bill would allow them, if the workers' comp board wants that information from the business, they can get it, but there's no use sending it up there. That's a burden to the state and to the business.
I was just sitting there thinking about what Representative Thompson and Senator Bowen was talking about, which was felons' rights. You realize how many kids are 16, 17, 18, 19 years old? They just make dumb decisions. And because of that, they end up going to jail. They cash checks. They just don't reason things out. And then they're punished for the rest of their lives. Once you pay all your fines to society, all the court costs, you're in jail for the full term, you pay all your costs to society, you should be allowed to come back. We do it in education. You make dumb decisions when you're in high school. You don't take math courses you should take. Then when you get to the community college or the university, you're forced to take developmental math. You should have taken it in high school, but you made a dumb decision. We don't punish you there. Why should we continue punishing you? Anyway, let me move on. Minimum wage. I was just telling Doc Watkins, I'm Representative Watkins from Henderson. My son's at University of Maryland. He and I have dinner every week together. My son's at University of Maryland, and I had a chance to talk to him this week, and we were talking about minimum wage. The reason we were talking about minimum wage is my son is working on a doctorate in political science. And most people are balking at that, and I have no problem with that. Everything you do in politics has advantages and disadvantages. Nothing you vote on is a pure advantage. Nothing you vote on is a pure disadvantage. Everything has pluses and minuses. The question is, can you live with the minuses and the positives? Minimum wage is being structured because our economy is only growing at 1.8 to 2% a year. It is dragging along the bottom. It's not working. So they're trying to do something else different. They figure maybe if we just increase the wages of those who are at the very bottom, because they spend all their money anyway at the retailing stores, and the retailers, if they do that, then the retailers will be forced to buy from manufacturers additional products. Makes sense. And then people say, well, you're going to end up reducing the workforce. Yeah, that's going to happen too. That's a downside. But the economists, I've been reading articles on that subject that discuss with my son. So I can sound like I know what I'm talking about. The economist says that roughly we'll add 85,000 new jobs in our economy if we do increase the minimum wage, which is, I haven't heard anybody discuss that. But it's out there. So anyway, it's a financial well-being issue. A bill that I worked on this, and I got it through the House, and it's in the Senate Education Committee right now. It's on State Financial Literacy Commission. It's to help people understand money. There are so many people out there who just don't understand money. Don't understand how it works, don't understand retirement, don't understand the impact of things they do. Like in our society, when they invented Social Security, you were never supposed to get it. You get it at 65, the average person died at 58. The public's forgot that. Now we're living longer, and we're running out of money, and the public is stunned. We didn't make the necessary core adjustments. What else? The pipeline. I mean, it has to do with eminent domain, taking land from people. That won't impact us. For us, it's a positive. The positive is we have a building built downtown. It's brand spanking new. It's on 2nd Street, right across from the new arena. Not called arena, what is it called? Convention Center. New Convention Center. It's a company that manages pipelines. If this bluegrass pipeline comes through, they'll be able to hire probably 30 or 40 more people. They got the space for it already. I took a walk through and I said, what are all those seats there? They said, if they build the bluegrass pipeline, we've got seats all ready to hire new people. So we're a benefit. I mean, the city of Owensboro will benefit. We'll get more tax revenue. We have more people move into our community. We have more property taxes. We'll sell more houses. and we'll sell more green beans. Okay? Last item I'm going to talk about is I was going through the state budget. I want people to think I'm lying to them. This is the state budget. So I was flipping through this puppy, and it said that 72% of our money that we get as far as revenue comes from two items. One is sales taxes, and the other is income taxes. Income taxes provide 40% of our state revenue, and sales taxes provide 32%. Total of 72% of the money we take in that runs our state budget. So if people are not working, and we're not generating enough income, which is what that minimum wage is supposed to do, if we're not doing that, then our sales taxes are down. Our income taxes are down. We're not generating enough revenue at the state level, in addition at the city and the county level.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the bills that I'm passionate about. Y'all know I'm a physician. Suzanne Western has the smoking ban bill, and that doesn't ban people from actually smoking. What it does ban is from people contaminating the air that those of us that don't like to smoke has. And when we go home, hopefully we won't have to take our clothes off and get in the shower to get the stink off of us. So I kind of think that's an important bill, and I would love to see it be voted on. Nevertheless, a lot of people dancing around a little bit worried, so we may not get a chance to vote on that bill. I was asked by the Hospice Association to sponsor a bill that calls medical or scope of treatment. And this bill is on the orders of the day, so we may get to vote on that. Hopefully, what it basically does is it gives you an opportunity if you have a condition that probably where you're not going to live more than 6 more months, which that's usually what the people that are in hospice fall under. It would give them an opportunity to tell how they want to be treated at the end of their life. And I think that's important. I think everybody should have that. We should be able to treat people with dignity and respect their wishes, especially when they have these terminal conditions. So that's one bill that I have sponsored, and again, it is on the orders of the day, and I hope we get to vote on it. Amendment on it that I don't like, that one of the other representatives put on is kind of requires everybody, whether they can eat, for them to have a feeding tube. And I personally don't want a feeding tube, and I don't want to put feeding tubes to my patients unless that's something they request. Now, if somebody wants a feeding tube, they should have a right to have a feeding tube. So, what we want to do is to give people the dignity to say what they want done to them at the end of their life expectancy. Another bill that I was able to get out of committee this last Thursday was the suntan bill. Now, we've had an explosion of skin cancers in our society. And, of course, there's 3 rather prominent types of skin cancers. 2 of them are taken care of fairly easy, although they do cost a fair amount of money. The squamous cell and basal cell cancers are something that some of y'all may have already had, and they're fairly easily taken care of. Unfortunately, there is a melanoma, and in the last 40 years, in young ladies, we've seen an 800% increase in melanoma in young ladies, a 400% increase in young men. And really, if you think about it, the tanning industry kind of has evolved over the last 40 years. And what my bill does, it blocks young ladies before 18 from getting in tanning beds, because that's when their skin is the most sensitive and where burns and exposure to the ultraviolet radiation can do the most damage. So again, I'm hoping that bill will get some traction and we'll move on through the House and the Senate. Another bill that I have sponsored, and it has gotten out of the House several times, is an HPV vaccine. Now, I've expanded this bill a little bit. What this does is requires all young boys and girls. Prior to this, it had just been girls, but in 2011, enough studies had been done on young men that they now recommend it for both men and women, that they have this vaccination along with their other childhood immunizations before they go into the 6th grade. Now, there are people that oppose immunizations for a variety of reasons, and if you don't want your child to have it, all you got to do is sign and say you don't want your child to have it. This is something that you don't have to have a notary public or any kind of special thing. You can just say you don't want your child to have it. Personally, I want all my grandchildren to have it. I'm a believer in immunizations. I think they're very, very important. I have, for instance, when you're past 60, now they've lowered it to 50, the shingles vaccine, I've had it. Pneumovac, I've had it. Flu vaccine, I've had it. The words immunizations, there's an old saying somebody had that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Well, you know what? I believe that. And I think that's important. And I think it's important for our children. Approximately annually 30,000 cancers related to the HPV vaccine. This is the first vaccine that we could give somebody to possibly prevent cancer. Isn't that a miracle? By the way, University of Louisville had a lot to do with developing this vaccine. So we've got a lot to be proud of here in Kentucky. And that's an important bill, and I would love to see it get a chance. You know, anytime there's a word sex associated with a bill, all of a sudden everybody seems to forget that that's the way we all got here. You know, sex is not a dirty word. I don't know why some people perceive it as such. Another bill that I have, and I was asked by the Pharmacy Board to sponsor this bill, is a bill to try to prevent artificial elevation of drug prices where they create a shortage by buying large quantities of these from the wholesaler and then selling them back to the wholesaler with an elevated price, and then they sell it on to hospitals and other places at elevated prices. So I have a bill to try to address that issue. And again, it was recommended and kind of crafted by the Pharmacy Board. These are some of the bills that I'm working on, and as a doctor, these are some of the areas I think I have expertise in, and that's the reason why I chose these bills. Now, I want y'all to know I support the minimum wage bill. As said, there are pros and cons to it, but let's give our working people a decent wage. I mean, why wouldn't we do that? Yes, there's some negative sides to it, but economists, and I'm talking about Nobel Prize-winning economists, tell us that in the long run this adds jobs. It boosts the economy. It sees things move along a lot better. It would, I think, help improve our gross domestic product. So I think that's an important deal.
I do want to go ahead and recognize, I do have my judge from Union County, Judge Chevy Jenkins, with us today. And one of my other judges, Judge Al Manley. I know several of y'all know him. And thank you all for being here today and letting us be available to ask questions, bringing up the bill specifically about the adjustment on the weight for the chicken poultry industry. Your people have been up and working the halls on that, so I don't see a problem that that's going to go forward. I mean, that it won't go forward. How about that? As far as some other issues, one thing that Representative Thompson brought up, he said they were only 56. Well, only 56 means they're in the majority, is what that means. So keep that in mind as far as that goes on specific items coming up.